The Moorland Discovery Centre, in the heart of the Peak District, is playing host to a workshop for teachers and pupils from 2 Sheffield-based schools on climate change teaching solutions. These curriculum-making workshops are run by Nikki Reckless and John Lyon from the Geographical Association in order to push the boundaries of geography teaching.
For quite a long time, education was about the teacher telling you what you needed to know. We're going to ask you to work with your teachers to plan some lessons around climate change, where you get the input. You say what's important to you, to your future, and how you'd like to learn about it.
Why is climate change geography? This is the question Nikki sets each group to work on brainstorming.
Why is climate change important geography? And I know the girls over here have started writing some statements. Do you want to read some of yours out first of all?
Geography has a lot to do with countries, certain places, etc. We can learn which countries produce the highest amount of CO2 emissions.
We buy clothes and toys and electronic goods that have been made in China using their CO2 emissions, but for our gain.
We were saying how geography kind of brings it all together and helps us put like chemistry and biology and PSE together, so like we can get a bigger picture of it.
Brilliant, thank you. I'd like you guys to talk to your geography teacher and ask them why they are passionate about geography, why they teach you geography, why they chose to learn geography themselves, and why they think they should be teaching you climate change.
What made you decide to become a geography teacher?
I was thinking, what can I do to make a difference to people? And I thought, well, see if I can grab them sooner and try and help people while their own thought processes and minds are still developing. So I retrained and became a geography teacher.
We'd like you in a minute to leave your teachers, and we're going to give you some space to write down the things that you would like to see taught, that you would, if it was your lesson, be really interested in if it was a climate change lesson. But ultimately, we're hoping that you will be able to go back to your classroom and to take part in a lesson that you know you've helped to create.
So like group work, using imagery, role plays.
Yeah.
We could have like a role play lesson where we're all working as a group, like teamwork.
You get given an article and then you have to make that somehow into a role play with objects.
Yeah.
Then that will help other students understand and like remember.
While the students are busy working on their ideas, the teachers have the opportunity to set out their visions too.
I think that's what's coming out more and more in the media, that actually we can all sort of think global, act local. Put that down, Agenda 21. It's making that into an engaging lesson, isn't it, that's the issue.
You've both got some brilliant lists of things that you want included in your lesson that you're going to plan with your teacher. The teacher's going to come back and they're going to have their ideas. So you now need to find a compromise. And what we would like you to do now is to spend some time thinking about that outcome that you want, thinking about the purpose of the lesson, what you would like to achieve in the lesson, and with your teacher, plan a lesson.
So we thought that role plays would be quite a good idea.
Yeah, but with the theme of climate change and global warming. Like.
So you could have like different people who were affected by climate change.
They could be given a story about someone, and then they can be in groups and they can act it out. And then, you know, to the rest of the class. They can be like, my name's blah, 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 I'm from Bangladesh.
So we could have like what about a TV programme about global warming? And this is a big global issue and it affects everybody in the world. So we're going to go round and we're going to go to this country and find this group of people.
Like they could be given a story or what's it called? An article, yeah.
Well, something electrical would be better than, in a way, Birkenstocks, because then you've got the sort of like the using it and the charging it.
So you'd start off with like CO2 and how it's being produced from the big factories and everything, but then lead it on to people who are upset about the problems with it, saying they could get flooded and stuff like that.
Well, if I brought in 6 things with a sort of like a thing written out about how they were made and where all the bits came from, I was like, our mystery question was, why is Nazrul worried about his fields being flooded? You've got to sort of produce a little bit for a TV programme. Or saying, how is this thing causing Nazrul to be worried or something? So you've got to then tell the story of the iPod and how that is contributing to global warming. Well, we've got the manufacturer. I don't know where they are manufacturing.
What's the kind of aim to your lesson?
We'll get like everybody involved really, like the people that maybe aren't really interested in doing written work, I'm sure they'd be happy to do something like role plays.
Okay. Would you like to see your lesson taught? Yeah, definitely. They're going to teach it for me.
We've asked you to do some really hard thinking. We as teachers find some of this hard. Thinking of ways to engage, to excite, to challenge, and to have a wider set of purposes as well with what we're planning. Can I put it to the teachers? Have you seen the students in a different light today?
What I am surprised at is that the reality of it, that this balance and the recognition of individual learning styles, and each of them recognising that they've got individual strengths and other people in the class. I was bowled over by that.
I think that today's workshop was good because we kind of got to get an input into what we do in our lessons, and we really feel that our teachers are going to make a difference to how they teach us.
People are always saying that children are like the ones who have to make the change for the future if it's going to work out. So I think that it's really important that we put into what the lesson's going to be about so that everyone learns from it.
And I think this collaborative working between students and staff is becoming increasingly important when you're trying to engage kids in their learning and empower them. And I think if they're part of that process, or at least feel like they're part of that process, then our teaching is becoming more effective, and their learning outcomes are going to be met more easily.
Well, I think we might work on their lesson. They've got some good ideas, and perhaps it's a little bit bolder than I might have done, so I think we might run with it.
A few weeks later, we went back to Sheffield to see Ruth and her students at King Edward VII School. The role plays they planned at the workshop have now been adapted to highlight the localised flooding.
We're going to do a programme called The iPod and the Flood. But obviously, when we planned this, we didn't know we were going to have our very own flood. We were going to base it in Bangladesh, but we didn't need to go as far as that. We're going to have 5 reporters around the world reporting about how different groups of people connected to the iPod actually contribute towards global warming. So for the Sheffield people affected by the flood, we have an umbrella and a pair of wellies. The people who design the iPod. Your props are going to be 3 pairs of sunglasses, so you can look like Californians. The factory workers in China who actually made the iPod. And you've got a bowl of rice and some chopsticks. The next group of people were the Arctic Monkeys manager. And the final group of people are the iPod owners. We've got a pink iPod. There we are. So you've got an information sheet. You've got to think of all the ways the people contribute to global warming.
The students then work on their script for their final presentation.
Welcome everyone to the show. Today we are looking at the links between one of the most daily used items, the iPod, and how Sheffield became flooded.
And we're now privileged to have a climate change expert, Miss Ruth Totterdell, to talk to us about climate change. So what are the links between the iPod and the floods?
All of us in our daily lives produce carbon emissions, and it's not just that we're singling the iPod out, but it's something that people have a lot to do with, and it's also something that has a path all over the world, so we're sort of linking different places in the world and how they all contribute to climate change. Sheffield's flood is not totally to do with climate change, but people think that these extreme weather events might be the sort of thing we can start expecting as climate change continues.
Now we're moving over to Sophia, a reporter who's been talking to victims of the flood.
Today we're live in Sheffield, which is one of many places affected by the torrential rainfall. So how were you affected by the flooding?
Well, when the flood actually came, we didn't actually have any warning that it was going to happen. It just happened.
So I went to my nan's and basically we got trapped. Then we decided to abandon the car so that we could get home. And as we were walking through, the water was literally up to my forehead. So I jumped onto a wall and held onto railing as I kept moving along. And I slipped and we had to rush me to hospital.
But can we really blame the iPod? Over to California to hear the iPod designers tell us more.
Hello, I'm here in sunny California. Did you know that the USA is the largest carbon producer in the world? Do you think you do anything in your lifestyle to contribute to this?
Well, we do drive 4x4s, but you've got to expect USA to contribute to carbon. We have the biggest economy.
Now we're going further back in the link to the manufacturers. In China, we have Joseph reporting back to us.
Thanks for that, Lily. I'm here with 2 Chinese factory workers. Each year, China puts out thousands of tons of CO2, and it's expected to soon overtake America as the world's largest emitter of carbon.
Well, I understand my job is having a negative effect on the environment, but it's the only way I can get the money to feed my family.
An original Sheffield band, the Arctic Monkeys, have recently been playing in Glastonbury.
Now here I am with the Arctic Monkeys representatives. How was Glastonbury?
Oh yeah, it was great. The set was great and the audience were amazing.
Do you realise that Get Your Gas helped to cause the devastating floods in your hometown Sheffield?
Be quiet. How exactly have we caused these floods?
Your jet setting, you're going back and forth from South America.
No comment.
And you're planning a tour in Japan and Australia next year.
Excuse me, we are not the only ones who are contributing to global warming.
Right, that was an interesting discussion over in Glastonbury, and now we've got some iPod-owning teenagers to tell us what they think about the flood.
So how do you think, as iPod users, you contribute to the carbon emissions?
I suppose when I charge it, it's using energy and emitting carbon, especially as it only needs 2 hours charge time. And I usually put it on for 6 hours while I'm at school.
Today we have heard many opinions and stories on the subject of climate change. However, we are still not certain on the link between carbon emissions and the flood events last week. But it is backed up by scientific approval. If we try to have a more sustainable lifestyle, it will leave the planet in a better state for future generations.
We're all to blame, but then again, we can all make a change. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
So, what did the students think of the lesson which their peers helped to plan?
And I liked how we did role plays. I thought it was very imaginative and a bit fun.
I'm going to think a lot about how I use an iPod and everything at home.
We were originally going to do the link all the way from Bangladesh, where floods happen quite often, but then the flood in Sheffield just happened, and I think that worked out really well.
And basically we were flooded from Hillsborough all the way to Meadowhall and beyond. I think that the students need to have some ownership on what they are learning. Well, the whole idea of this was relating it to them and their individual lives and thinking that this one thing they had a whole story attached to it.